Welcome to Good to Great. Why some companies make the leap and others don't. A groundbreaking business classic written by Jim Collins. Jim Collins, along with his research team, analyzed over 1,400 companies, ultimately identifying just a handful that made the leap from mediocrity to excellence and sustained that greatness for at least 15 years. In these pages, you'll discover the patterns, behaviors, and principles that separated the truly great companies from the merely good ones. So sit back, relax, and get ready to explore what it truly takes to go from good to great. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Good is the enemy of great. And that is one of the key reasons why we have so little that becomes great. Few people attain great lives, in large part because it is just so easy to settle for a good life. The vast majority of companies never become great, precisely because the vast majority become quite good, and that is their main problem. The good to great companies did not focus principally on what to do to become great. They focused equally on what not to do and what to stop doing. That good is the enemy of great is not just a business problem. It is a human problem. If we have cracked the code on the question of good to great, we should have something of value to any type of organization. Good schools might become great schools. Good newspapers might become great newspapers. Good churches might become great churches. Good government agencies might become great agencies. And good companies might become great companies. Chapter 2. Level 5 Leadership. You can accomplish anything in life, provided that you do not mind who gets the credit. You can accomplish anything in life, provided that you do not mind who gets the credit. It is very important to grasp that level 5 leadership is not just about humility and modesty. It is equally about ferocious resolve, an almost stoic determination to do whatever needs to be done to make the company great. Indeed, we debated for a long time on the research team about how to describe the good to great leaders. Initially, we penciled in terms like selfless executive and servant leader. But members of the team violently objected to these characterizations. I believe, although I cannot prove, that potential level 5 leaders are highly prevalent in our society. The problem is not, in my estimation, a dearth of potential level 5 leaders. They exist all around us, if we just know what to look for. And what is that? Look for situations where extraordinary results exist, but where no individual steps forth to claim excess credit. You will likely find a potential level 5 leader at work. Chapter 3, First 2. Then what? There are going to be times when we can't wait for somebody. Now, you're either on the bus or off the bus. The good to great leaders understood 3 simple truths. First, if you begin with who rather than what, you can more easily adapt to a changing world. If people join the bus primarily because of where it is going, what happens if you get 10 miles down the road and you need to change direction? You've got a problem. But if people are on the bus because of who else is on the bus, then it's much easier to change direction. Hey, I got on this bus because of who else is on it. If we need to change direction to be more successful, fine with me. Second, if you have the right people on the bus, the problem of how to motivate and manage people largely goes away. The right people don't need to be tightly managed or fired up. They will be self-motivated by the inner drive to produce the best results and to be part of creating something great. Third, if you have the wrong people, it doesn't matter whether you discover the right direction. You still won't have a great company. Great vision without great people is irrelevant. To be clear, the main point of this chapter is not just about assembling the right team. That's nothing new. The main point is to first get the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus before you figure out where to drive it. The second key point is the degree of sheer rigor needed in people decisions in order to take a company from good to great. The good to great leaders were rigorous, not ruthless, in people decisions. They did not rely on layoffs and restructuring as a primary strategy for improving performance. The comparison companies used layoffs to a much greater extent. We uncovered 3 practical disciplines for being rigorous in people decisions. 1. When in doubt, don't hire, keep looking. Corollary. A company should limit its growth based on its ability to attract enough of the right people. 2. When you know you need to make a people change, act. Corollary. First, be sure you don't simply have someone in the wrong seat. 3. Put your best people on your biggest opportunities, not your biggest problems. Corollary. If you sell off your problems, don't sell off your best people. Good to great management teams consist of people who debate vigorously in search of the best answers, yet who unify behind decisions, regardless of parochial interests. The old adage, people are your most important asset, is wrong. People are not your most important asset. The right people are. Whether someone is the right person has more to do with character traits and innate capabilities than with specific knowledge, background, or skills. Chapter 4. Confront the brutal facts, yet never lose faith. There is no worse mistake in public leadership than to hold out false hopes soon to be swept away. There is nothing wrong with pursuing a vision for greatness. After all, the good to great companies also set out to create greatness. But, unlike the comparison companies, the good to great companies continually refine the path to greatness with the brutal facts of reality. Indeed, for those of you with a strong, charismatic personality, it is worthwhile to consider the idea that charisma can be as much a liability as an asset. Your strength of personality can sow the seeds of problems when people filter the brutal facts from you. You can overcome the liabilities of having charisma, but it does require conscious attention. Yes, leadership is about vision, but leadership is equally about creating a climate where the truth is heard and the brutal facts confronted. There's a huge difference between the opportunity to have your say and the opportunity to be heard. The good to great leaders understood this distinction, creating a culture wherein people had a tremendous opportunity to be heard and, ultimately, for the truth to be heard. Leading from good to great does not mean coming up with the answers and then motivating everyone to follow your messianic vision. It means having the humility to grasp the fact that you do not yet understand enough to have the answers, and then to ask the questions that will lead to the best possible insights. When you conduct autopsies without blame, you go a long way toward creating a climate where the truth is heard. If you have the right people on the bus, you should almost never need to assign blame, but need only to search for understanding and learning. Indeed, we found no evidence that the good to great companies had more or better information than the comparison companies. None. Both sets of companies had virtually identical access to good information. The key, then, lies not in better information, but in turning information into information that cannot be ignored. Chapter Summary. Confront the brutal facts, yet never lose faith. Key points. All good to great companies began the process of finding a path to greatness by confronting the brutal facts of their current reality. When you start with an honest and diligent effort to determine the truth of your situation, the right decisions often become self-evident. It is impossible to make good decisions without infusing the entire process with an honest confrontation of the brutal facts. A primary task in taking a company from good to great is to create a culture wherein people have a tremendous opportunity to be heard and, ultimately, for the truth to be heard. The good to great companies faced just as much adversity as the comparison companies, but responded to that adversity differently. They hit the realities of their situation head-on. As a result, they emerged from adversity even stronger. Unexpected findings. Charisma can be as much a liability as an asset, as the strength of your leadership personality can deter people from bringing you the brutal facts. Leadership does not begin just with vision. It begins with getting people to confront the brutal facts and to act on the implications. Spending time and energy trying to motivate people is a waste of effort. The real question is not, how do we motivate our people? If you have the right people, they will be self-motivated. The key is to not demotivate them. One of the primary ways to demotivate people is to ignore the brutal facts of reality. Chapter 5. The Hedgehog Concept. Simplicity within the three circles. The essential strategic difference between the good to great and comparison companies lay in two fundamental distinctions. First, the good to great companies founded their strategies on deep understanding along three key dimensions, what we came to call the three circles. Second, the good to great companies translated that understanding into a simple, crystalline concept that guided all their efforts, hence the term hedgehog concept. More precisely, a hedgehog concept is a simple, crystalline concept that flows from deep understanding about the intersection of the following three circles. 1. What you can be the best in the world at, and, equally important, what you cannot be the best in the world at. This discerning standard goes far beyond core competence. Just because you possess a core competence doesn't necessarily mean you can be the best in the world at it. Conversely, what you can be the best at might not even be something in which you are currently engaged. 2. What drives your economic engine? All the good to great companies attained piercing insight into how to most effectively generate sustained and robust cash flow and profitability. In particular, they discovered the single denominator, profit per X, that had the greatest impact on their economics. It would be cash flow per X in the social sector. 3. What you are deeply passionate about. The good to great companies focused on those activities that ignited their passion. The idea here is not to stimulate passion, but to discover what makes you passionate. To quickly grasp the 3 circles, consider the following personal analogy. Suppose you were able to construct a work life that meets the following 3 tests. First, you are doing work for which you have a genetic or God-given talent, and perhaps you could become one of the best in the world in applying that talent. I feel that I was just born to be doing this. Second, you are well paid for what you do. I get paid to do this? Am I dreaming? Third, you are doing work you are passionate about and absolutely love to do, enjoying the actual process for its own sake. I look forward to getting up and throwing myself into my daily work, and I really believe in what I'm doing. If you could drive toward the intersection of these 3 circles and translate that intersection into a simple, crystalline concept that guided your life choices, then you'd have a hedgehog concept for yourself. To have a fully developed hedgehog concept, you need all 3 circles. If you make a lot of money doing things at which you could never be the best, you'll only build a successful company, not a great one. If you become the best at something, you'll never remain on top if you don't have intrinsic passion for what you are doing. Finally, you can be passionate all you want, but if you can't be the best at it or it doesn't make economic sense, then you might have a lot of fun, but you won't produce great results. This brings me to one of the most crucial points of this chapter. A hedgehog concept is not a goal to be the best, a strategy to be the best, an intention to be the best, a plan to be the best. It is an understanding of what you can be the best at. The distinction is absolutely crucial. Every company would like to be the best at something, but few actually understand, with piercing insight and egoless clarity, what they actually have the potential to be the best at, and, just as important, what they cannot be the best at. And it is this distinction that stands as one of the primary contrasts between the good to great companies and the comparison companies. Just because something is your core business, just because you've been doing it for years or perhaps even decades, does not necessarily mean that you can be the best in the world at it. And if you cannot be the best in the world at your core business, then your core business cannot form the basis of your hedgehog concept. To go from good to great requires transcending the curse of competence. It requires the discipline to say, just because we are good at it, just because we're making money and generating growth, doesn't necessarily mean we can become the best at it. The good to great companies understood that doing what you are good at will only make you good. Focusing solely on what you can potentially do better than any other organization is the only path to greatness. The good to great companies did not say, okay, folks, let's get passionate about what we do. Sensibly, they went the other way entirely. We should only do those things that we can get passionate about. The key is to understand what your organization can be the best in the world at, and equally important, what it cannot be the best at, not what it wants to be the best at. The hedgehog concept is not a goal, strategy, or intention. It is an understanding. The best in the world, understanding is a much more severe standard than a core competence. You might have a competence, but not necessarily have the capacity to be truly the best in the world at that competence. Conversely, there may be activities at which you could become the best in the world, but at which you have no current competence. Good to great companies set their goals and strategies based on understanding. Comparison companies set their goals and strategies based on bravado. You absolutely do not need to be in a great industry to produce sustained great results. No matter how bad the industry, every good to great company figured out how to produce truly superior economic returns. Chapter 6: A Culture of Discipline. Freedom is only part of the story and half the truth. That is why I recommend that the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast be supplanted by a Statue of Responsibility on the West Coast. Few successful startups become great companies, in large part because they respond to growth and success in the wrong way. Entrepreneurial success is fueled by creativity, imagination, bold moves into uncharted waters, and visionary zeal. As a company grows and becomes more complex, it begins to trip over its own success. Too many new people, too many new customers, too many new orders, too many new products. What was once great fun becomes an unwieldy ball of disorganized stuff. Lack of planning, lack of accounting, lack of systems, and lack of hiring constraints create friction. Problems surface with customers, with cash flow, with schedules. The professional managers finally rein in the mess. They create order out of chaos, but they also kill the entrepreneurial spirit. Members of the founding team begin to grumble. This isn't fun anymore. I used to be able to just get things done. Now I have to fill out these stupid forms and follow these stupid rules. Worst of all, I have to spend a horrendous amount of time in useless meetings. The creative magic begins to wane as some of the most innovative people leave, disgusted by the burgeoning bureaucracy and hierarchy. The exciting startup transforms into just another company, with nothing special to recommend it. The cancer of mediocrity begins to grow in earnest. The good to great companies built a consistent system with clear constraints, but they also gave people freedom and responsibility within the framework of that system. They hired self-disciplined people who didn't need to be managed, and then managed the system, not the people. In a sense, much of this book is about creating a culture of discipline. It all starts with disciplined people. The transition begins not by trying to discipline the wrong people into the right behaviors, but by getting self-disciplined people on the bus in the first place. Next, we have disciplined thought. You need the discipline to confront the brutal facts of reality, while retaining resolute faith that you can and will create a path to greatness. Most importantly, you need the discipline to persist in the search for understanding until you get your hedgehog concept. Finally, we have disciplined action, the primary subject of this chapter. This order is important. The comparison companies often tried to jump right to disciplined action. But disciplined action without self-disciplined people is impossible to sustain, and disciplined action without disciplined thought is a recipe for disaster. Indeed, discipline by itself will not produce great results. We find plenty of organizations in history that had tremendous discipline and that marched right into disaster, with precision and in nicely formed lines. No, the point is to first get self-disciplined people who engage in very rigorous thinking, who then take disciplined action within the framework of a consistent system designed around the hedgehog concept. Everyone would like to be the best, but most organizations lack the discipline to figure out with egoless clarity what they can be the best at and the will to do whatever it takes to turn that potential into reality. They lack the discipline to rinse their cottage cheese. It takes discipline to say no, thank you to big opportunities. The fact that something is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity is irrelevant if it doesn't fit within the 3 circles. Start a stop-doing list. Do you have a to-do list? Do you also have a stop-doing list? Most of us lead busy but undisciplined lives. We have ever-expanding to-do lists, trying to build momentum by doing, and doing more. And it rarely works. Those who built the good-to-great companies, however, made as much use of stop-doing lists as to-do lists. They displayed a remarkable discipline to unplug all sorts of extraneous junk. In a good-to-great transformation, budgeting is a discipline to decide which arenas should be fully funded and which should not be funded at all. In other words, the budget process is not about figuring out how much each activity gets, but about determining which activities best support the hedgehog concept and should be fully strengthened and which should be eliminated entirely. Chapter Summary. A culture of discipline. Key points. Sustained great results depend upon building a culture full of self-disciplined people who take disciplined action, fanatically consistent with the 3 circles. A culture of discipline involves a duality. On the one hand, it requires people who adhere to a consistent system. Yet, on the other hand, it gives people freedom and responsibility within the framework of that system. A culture of discipline is not just about action. It is about getting disciplined people who engage in disciplined thought and who then take disciplined action. The good-to-great companies appear boring and pedestrian looking in from the outside, but upon closer inspection, they're full of people who display extreme diligence and a stunning intensity. They rinse their cottage cheese. Do not confuse a culture of discipline with a tyrant who disciplines. They are very different concepts, one highly functional, the other highly dysfunctional. Savior CEOs who personally discipline through sheer force of personality usually fail to produce sustained results. The single most important form of discipline for sustained results is fanatical adherence to the hedgehog concept and the willingness to shun opportunities that fall outside the three circles. Unexpected findings. The more an organization has the discipline to stay within its three circles with almost religious consistency, the more it will have opportunities for growth. The fact that something is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity is irrelevant unless it fits within the three circles. A great company will have many once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. The purpose of budgeting in a good-to-great company is not to decide how much each activity gets, but to decide which arenas best fit with the hedgehog concept and should be fully funded and which should not be funded at all. Stop-doing lists are more important than to-do lists. Chapter 7. Technology Accelerators. Most men would rather die than think. Many do. Those who built the good-to-great companies weren't motivated by fear. They weren't driven by fear of what they didn't understand. They weren't driven by fear of looking like a chump. They weren't driven by fear of watching others hit it big while they didn't. They weren't driven by the fear of being hammered by the competition. No, those who turn good into great are motivated by a deep creative urge and an inner compulsion for sheer unadulterated excellence for its own sake. Those who build and perpetuate mediocrity, in contrast, are motivated more by the fear of being left behind. Chapter Summary. Technology Accelerators. Key points. 1. Good to great organizations think differently about technology and technological change than mediocre ones. 2. Good to great organizations avoid technology fads and bandwagons, yet they become pioneers in the application of carefully selected technologies. 3. The key question about any technology is, does the technology fit directly with your hedgehog concept? If yes, then you need to become a pioneer in the application of that technology. If no, then you can settle for parity or ignore it entirely. 4. The good to great companies use technology as an accelerator of momentum, not a creator of it. None of the good to great companies began their transformations with pioneering technology, yet they all became pioneers in the application of technology once they grasped how it fit with their three circles and after they hit breakthrough. 5. You could have taken the exact same leading-edge technologies pioneered at the good-to-great companies and handed them to their direct comparisons for free, and the comparisons still would have failed to produce anywhere near the same results. 6. How a company reacts to technological change is a good indicator of its inner drive for greatness versus mediocrity. Great companies respond with thoughtfulness and creativity, driven by a compulsion to turn unrealized potential into results. Mediocre companies react and lurch about, motivated by fear of being left behind. Unexpected findings. 1. The idea that technological change is the principal cause in the decline of once great companies, or the perpetual mediocrity of others, is not supported by the evidence. Certainly, a company can't remain a laggard and hope to be great, but technology by itself is never a primary root cause of either greatness or decline. 2. Crawl, walk, run can be a very effective approach, even during times of rapid and radical technological change. Chapter 8. Revolution means turning the wheel. Pushing with great effort, you get the flywheel to inch forward, moving almost imperceptibly at first. You keep pushing, and after 2 or 3 hours of persistent effort, you get the flywheel to complete one entire turn. You keep pushing, and the flywheel begins to move a bit faster, and with continued great effort, you move it around a second rotation. You keep pushing in a consistent direction. Then, at some point, breakthrough. The momentum of the thing kicks in your favor, hurling the flywheel forward, turn after turn, whoosh. Its own heavy weight working for you. You're pushing no harder than during the first rotation, but the flywheel goes faster and faster. Each turn of the flywheel builds upon work done earlier, compounding your investment of effort. 1,000 times faster, then 10,000, then 100,000. The huge heavy disc flies forward, with almost unstoppable momentum. Stop and think about it for a minute. What do the right people want more than almost anything else? They want to be part of a winning team. They want to contribute to producing visible, tangible results. They want to feel the excitement of being involved in something that just flat out works. When the right people see a simple plan born of confronting the brutal facts, a plan developed from understanding, not bravado, they are likely to say, "That'll work." Count me in. When they see the monolithic unity of the executive team behind the simple plan and the selfless, dedicated qualities of level 5 leadership, they'll drop their cynicism. When people begin to feel the magic of momentum, when they begin to see tangible results, when they can feel the flywheel beginning to build speed, that's when the bulk of people line up to throw their shoulders against the wheel and push. Chapter Summary. Key points. 1. Good to great transformations often look like dramatic, revolutionary events to those observing from the outside, but they feel like organic, cumulative processes to people on the inside. The confusion of end outcomes, dramatic results, with process, organic, and cumulative, skews our perception of what really works over the long haul. 2. No matter how dramatic the end result, the good to great transformations never happened in one fell swoop. There was no single defining action, no grand program, no one killer innovation, no solitary lucky break, no miracle moment. 3. Sustainable transformations follow a predictable pattern of build-up and breakthrough. Like pushing on a giant, heavy flywheel, it takes a lot of effort to get the thing moving at all, but with persistent pushing in a consistent direction over a long period of time, the flywheel builds momentum, eventually hitting a point of breakthrough. 4. The comparison companies followed a different pattern, the doom loop. Rather than accumulating momentum, turn by turn of the flywheel, they tried to skip build-up and jump immediately to breakthrough. Then, with disappointing results, they'd lurch back and forth, failing to maintain a consistent direction. Unexpected results. 1. Those inside the good-to-great companies were often unaware of the magnitude of their transformation at the time. Only later, in retrospect, did it become clear. They had no name, tagline, launch event, or program to signify what they were doing at the time. 2. The good-to-great leaders spent essentially no energy trying to create alignment, motivate the troops, or manage change. Under the right conditions, the problems of commitment, alignment, motivation, and change largely take care of themselves. Alignment principally follows from results and momentum, not the other way around. Chapter 9. From good to great to built to last. It is your work in life that is the ultimate seduction. To be clear, I am not suggesting that going from good to great is easy, or that every organization will successfully make the shift. By definition, it is not possible for everyone to be above average. But I am asserting that those who strive to turn good into great find the process no more painful or exhausting than those who settle for just letting things wallow along in mind-numbing mediocrity. Yes, turning good into great takes energy, but the building of momentum adds more energy back into the pool than it takes out. Conversely, perpetuating mediocrity is an inherently depressing process and drains much more energy out of the pool than it puts back in. Indeed, the real question is not, why greatness? But what work makes you feel compelled to try to create greatness? If you have to ask the question, why should we try to make it great? Isn't success enough? Then you're probably engaged in the wrong line of work. The company shows a pattern of good performance punctuated by a transition point, after which it shifts to great performance. We define great performance as a cumulative total stock return of at least 3 times the general market for the period from the point of transition through 15 years.